go back and forth and weave the songs with all the issues we care about and hear from people that really want to tell their story. So we're so excited. So we're just going to kick stuff off with a great song. What are we going to kick off with first?
We got 3 songs.
We got 3.
Sorry, we're going to get y'all fired up.
We get fired up. I love it. Let's go.
Sitting alone in this hotel room, TV on, tuned into the news. There's another day here in paradise. Mass shootings, deportations, wildfires. Meanwhile, Mr. Make America Great is busy tweeting his works and spreading more hate. While some of us are so poor they can't afford shoes on their feet, while some other sweet baby starves to death in their sleep. Can you see us? We are dreamers. Can you feel us? We are believers. We are more than keyboard warriors. We are the change makers. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Somewhere in 100 no-name towns are a million lives being turned upside down. And this is the only home those kids have ever known. Refugees from wars and regimes being overthrown. Meanwhile, too many of these United States ignore the words Lady Liberty spake. Doors being kicked down in the dead of the night. No more sanctuary cities. How's that for religious right? Can you see us? We are dreamers. Can you feel us? We are believers. We are more than keyboard warriors. We are the change makers. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. And if there's anyone out there who questions what America at its very best will feel like now, remember 66 million united in love, steadfastly indivisible across countless seas and towns. Oh, the bluest wave crashing from shore to shore. And all those hate has no home here. Signs on all those doors. We know who we are and like we know how to breathe. Won't you sing it with me? Sing it with me, please. Give me your tired, your poor, your heart masses yearning to breathe free. Give me the wretched refuse of your teeming shores and these homeless the tempest comes to me. Come on. Give me your tired, your poor, your heart masses yearning to breathe free. Give me the wretched refuse of your teeming shores and these homeless the tempest comes to me. Oh, can you see us? We are dreamers.
Yes, we are.
Can you feel us? We are believers. And we are more than keyboard warriors. We are the change makers. Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
Sometimes we just need a reminder that despite everything that they have done, everything that they continue to do, I'm still here. I'm still here. Sing that. I'm still here. I'm still here. All of this running and racing, I forgot. I've got 2 feet, I'm proud of where they've been. Bruised and I'm tired, burned by the fire, but I've kept moving. And in all of this running and racing, I forgot that I'm still here. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. start? When will I arrive? Oh, wasting my time, rushing through life, too blind to see that I'm still alive. And all of this running and racing, I forgot that I'm still here. Oh, sometimes the best I can do is just wake up, open my eyes, put a brave face on, ignore the lies in my mind that say I'm better off dead than alive. And in this war against the living, I'm proud of myself for not giving in, 'cause I'm still here. Sing that. I'm still here. Yes, you are. I'm still here. Let me hear you. I'm still here. Yes, we are. I'm still here. Yes, I'm still here. Keep going. I'm still waking, I'm still crying, I'm still laughing and I'm still trying, I'm still holding and I'm still breathing, I'm still talking and I'm still screaming, I'm still giving and I'm still taking, I'm still bending, but we're not breaking, 'cause we're still here. We're still here. At the top of your lungs, we're still here. We're still here. And we're still here. Let me hear you. We're still here. We're still here. We're still here. Are we going anywhere? No matter what they do, no matter what they say, are we going anywhere? No. We're still here. We're still here. Voices say. We're still here. We're still here. We're still here. We're still here.
Yes, we are.
Well, after yesterday, there's really only one other song we can sing. I wrote this song originally after Texas decided to, as we say in my home state of North Carolina, show their behind. And it's certainly very appropriate to sing today. This song is called Sister's Keeper. I'm a preacher's kid, so sometimes the songs come out sound a little bit more like a sermon. And I think that's all right. Rage is like fire. It's warm until it's hot. It's quiet till it's not. And these days, they require all the can't stop and won't stop rage that you got. Every time we catch our breath, they try harder to choke out what we got within. And it's a mad, mad world. If you're a woman or a girl, they don't see us, they don't hear us, till they fear us, till they fear us. And I know this world is hard on you. But come on, we got work to do. Pay her what you were, say that you believe her, that it's her body, her choice, not yours. Be your sister's keeper. Rage is like fire. You can tell how far it's spread till you're in over your head. These flames, they burn higher, like a phoenix queen spread rising back from the dead. Every time we think we're safe, oh, they come and they chip another one of our rights away. And it's a mad, mad world. If you're a woman or a girl, they don't see us, they don't hear us, till they fear us, and they better fear us. And I know, this world is hard on you. But come on, we got work to do. Pay her what she's worth, say that you believe her. Dixon, Joy and Truth, and Baker, Rosa, Sonia, and Ruth. We are the warriors now, like we've always been. These extraordinary times we were made for them. Liberty and justice are just birthrights for men. We're not for mother's script, born and paid for them. And I know, this world is hard on you. But come on, we got work to do. Pay her what she worth. Say that you believe her, that it's her fight, her choice. I know that be a sister's keeper. Be a sister's keeper. Oh. Rage is like fire. It's warm until it's hot. It's quiet till it's not.
Our first speaker, I should say, is Heather Booth. Let's give her a big welcome. Talk about it. The data, organizer, change maker, and business keeper, founder of the Youth and Journal Brigade, Heather Booth.
You are our sister keepers, and our brother keepers, and the keeper of freedom and justice. And moving forward, thank this wonderful, inspiring, and thanks to you. You are the people who will organize, do the work, move us through this election, and organize to build our power, our support, and build that better future that we long for. Right now, we are on a knife's edge in this country. On the one hand, we have not only the Supreme Court, justices who don't know what justice is, who have put themselves between a woman and the most intimate decision of our lives about when, whether, and with whom we have a child. There's now 1 in 5 people who can have a child who will have an abortion. 1 in 5. And before the restrictions, it was 1 in 3 and then 1 in 4. And what it means is it could be your sister, your cousin, it could be your mother. Most of the women who have an abortion already have a child and know what it means to bring a child into the world. On the one hand, we have this oppressive tyranny coming after us on reproductive freedom, but also on all our freedoms, on sensible gun laws, on voting rights, on this criminal attack on democracy itself, this criminal attack on our country, as we see on the January 6th hearings. But on the other hand, we see the beauty of groups like this magnified around the country, organizing to change the world. We had 80 million votes for President Biden, more votes than anyone ever had in history. We had more votes for the difference between Biden and that other candidate, who can never come back and won't if we mobilize that base and if we organize. I learned this lesson most clearly first when I was in the civil rights movement, which is how I came into the movement. When I was 18 years old in 1964, I went to Mississippi with the Freedom Summer Project. Many of you have heard about it. Some of you may have been there or know about it. It's when Northern students were recruited to support the courageous efforts of African Americans in Mississippi who are registering to vote. And the summer project gained notoriety when 3 of the young volunteers, Andrew Goodman, James Chaney, and Michael Schwerner, were killed at the hands of the Klan. I was arrested for the first time in my life at 18 simply for holding a sign saying "Freedom Now" while supporting a voter registration effort. But because we organized, within a year there was a Voting Rights Act, and when we organize, we can change this world. I went back to my campus. In 1965, a friend told me that his sister was pregnant and nearly suicidal, not ready to have a child. And could I find someone to perform an abortion for her? I hadn't really thought about the issue. It was a more innocent time. In some ways, I was a more innocent person. But I said I would try and do what I could as a good deed, because our values lead us into this action. And I found a doctor, Dr. T.R.M. Howard. We should know his name. I didn't know it at the time, but he had been a very courageous civil rights leader in Mississippi until his name appeared on a Klan death list, because he said there should be an investigation into the murder of Emmett Till, the teenager from Chicago who was killed when a white woman said that he had whistled at her, though even that later she recanted. So Dr. Howard came to Chicago, where I was a student, and I made the connection with my friend. The procedure was successful, and I actually thought that would be the end of it. It was a good deed. It was a moral act. I was raised in the golden rule. You do for others as you'd want to be treated. I had never faced the issue myself. I never have. But it was a friend in need. But word must have spread and someone else called. And I made that arrangement and the procedure was successful. And then word spread and someone else called. And at that point, I decided to set up a system. And because it wasn't legal, 3 people talking about performing an abortion in Chicago in those years was a conspiracy to commit a felony. I'm not quite sure I knew how illegal it was at the time. But we said, when you call, ask for Jane. Call Jane. Over time, there were a number of changes. Moved from Dr. Howard was no longer available. Mike came into the picture. He was performing the procedures. And so many were coming through. So many people were coming through. I then recruited others into the system. At one point, there probably were 100 women a week coming through the procedures. And we created a caring community, a loving community, what the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee called the beloved community. It was safe. It was accessible for those who came, but it wasn't legal. And over time, Mike taught the women how to do the procedures. And between 1965 and 1973, when Roe became the law of the land, the women of Jane performed themselves 11,000 abortions. Because people organized, because we raised our voices, told our stories, sang our songs, marched in the streets, and took it to the polls. We had protections for many, not for all, but for many for nearly 50 years. And now we see this pushback. But we know that when we organize, we have changed this world, and if we organize now, we will change this world. So tell me, are you ready to organize? Take action! Are you ready to vote? Are you ready to elect the majority that will lead for people, for freedom, for justice, and for a better world? Together.
oppression down.
Gonna shut oppression down.
I hear the voice of my great-granddaughter.
I hear the voice of my great-granddaughter
saying, fight for me now.
saying, fight for me now.
Knocked down, but now she's back up. This world is far from one. You underestimated, now she's liberated. Look at what she's done. She got in, but she ain't had. She got tears, but they won't last. She's the daughter of the new revolution. She's a common seeking retribution. Oh, she's a warrior. Oh, she don't take any prisoners. Oh, you should have thought twice about messing with a woman. She's a warrior. Her mama told her, her mama warned her, honey, there's a kind of man. Still you imagine it can make you average. Try to bend you down and chain your hands. But bowing down ain't a woman's place. We work too hard to be erased. Keep your head up, show them what you're made of. And when in doubt, remember who you came from. Oh, she's a warrior. Oh, and she don't take any prisoners. Oh, should've thought twice about messing with a woman. Oh, she's alright, repeat after me. Women gonna rise like water. Women gonna rise like water. Gonna shut oppression down.
Gonna shut oppression down.
I hear the voice of my great-granddaughter.
I hear the voice of my great-granddaughter
saying, fight for me now.
saying, fight for me now.
Women gonna rise like water. Gonna shut oppression down. I hear the voice of my great-granddaughter saying, fight for me now. Let me hear you. Women gonna rise like water. Gonna shut oppression down. I hear the voice of my great-granddaughter saying, fight for me now. Women gonna rise like water. Gonna shut oppression down. I hear the voice of my great-granddaughter saying, fight for me now. Women gonna rise like water. Gonna shut oppression down. I hear the voice of my great-granddaughter saying, fight for me now. She's a warrior.
Are you all warriors? My name is Tarina Keene. I am the Executive Director of ReproRising Virginia. And I can tell you right now that I am a warrior, and I hope you are too, because we need to be fighting every single moment for our reproductive rights. Yesterday, the Supreme Court took away our bodily autonomy. They said we had no right to it. They said we have no right to access to it. Do you believe them? Absolutely not. We are going to fight like hell every single day until Virginia is a safe haven for reproductive rights and access. Right now, the good news is abortion is legal, it's safe, and it's accessible in the Commonwealth. That's the good news. For now. We are one vote away, one vote, from losing our reproductive rights and access to safe legal abortion care here in Virginia. That cannot that will likely ban or severely restrict access to abortion in this country. We will not be the 27th. I guarantee you that. No matter what Glenn Youngkin said, because yesterday, guess what? In the middle of us mourning and being outraged at the loss of our rights from the Supreme Court, he came out to say, oh, Virginians, we're going to find some compromise and we're going to put a 15-week abortion ban in. No, we're not. We are not. And we are not going to fall victim to whatever they have in store for us, because it's coming. We have to fight. I guarantee you. I have been doing this for almost 2 decades. I know that they are coming. We cannot underestimate them. So, what can we do? Because I know my phone and probably your phones and emails have been blowing up for the last 24 hours about what can we do? Well, I want you to understand that what's happening at the federal level, it will take a really long time to actually codify reproductive rights and access into federal law. It is going to be an act. It's going to be a miracle to get it done anytime soon. So, I want you to understand that this fight has been in the States all along, but it just got amplified exponentially. This is going to be a state-by-state battle. So, I want you to understand that Virginia is a battleground. We are a destination state for our friends along our borders. Kentucky shut down access yesterday. West Virginia and Tennessee will be next. And then all those other states beyond. We have people already coming from Texas to get care. We need to be that destination state. We need to be that safe haven state. But understand that there are only so many access points in the Commonwealth. We need to make sure that we're doing everything we can so people can get the care that they need. So, what can you do in your own community? What can you do in your state? First, of course, vote. We need to make sure that we have a majority in the General Assembly. You need to vote for your school board, your city councils, your county supervisors. Every single one of these elected positions will matter going forward. And your Commonwealth's attorneys who will decide whether they will criminalize somebody for their pregnancy outcome or not. This is how it's going to be very tenuous in terms of what will happen to women and pregnant people. Also, if you want to do something practical to make sure someone gets access, sign up to transport someone from the airport to a clinic. Sign up to escort out in front of providers. Sign up to knock on doors and make phone calls to elect pro-reproductive freedom candidates. Make sure that you are doing everything you can in your own community, in your neighborhood, in your state, because this is where the battle is, and it's going to be here for the foreseeable future. This is going to come down to who has power over my decisions? Who has the authority to pass laws that affect my bodily autonomy? Who has the control over my body? Is it you? Or is it Governor Youngkin? No. Is it Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears? No. Is it Attorney General Jason Yares? No. Is it your delegate? Is it your senator? No. I hope so if they're pro-abortion rights. So make sure that when you are voting, you know where those candidates stand, because it's going to come down to them, but it's going to come down to us to make sure that access is actually there for people to get the care they need in a timely manner. So thank you very much. Please, please, please sign up to get involved. Come talk to me. I will let you know how to get involved with any and all of the advocacy the funds, the providers, they all need help now. So thank you. And don't forget, say the word abortion.
So this next song we want to do for you is called Cancel Culture. And it's named that because there's so many people who are not as fired up and passionate about justice and equity as we are in this room. They are often told and saying, I'm just so scared to say anything because I don't want to be canceled. But all that does is keep you silent. And all that silence does is keep you complicit. There's a whole lot in our culture I'd cancel if I could. Instead of banning books, I'd ban jail or Mandarin. The rich would feed the poor like the good Lord said they should. And every child, without exception, would feel loved and understood. No more whitewashing our history when the truth will set us free. No more watching corporate profits soar while people sink into poverty. No more telling kids they're flawed because you think that your God would. There's a whole lot in our culture I'd cancel if I could. There's a whole lot in our culture we should cancel right away. Instead of banning, saying gay, we should ban racist holidays. Teachers should get to teach without worrying about their pay, or if they'll have an active shooter that they'll have to keep at bay. No more kids in bulletproof backpacks. It's a school, not a war. No more pretending that machine guns are what the Second Amendment was for. No more doing nothing because it's easier most days. And there's a whole lot in our culture we should cancel right away. There's a whole lot in our culture we could cancel if we tried. Instead of banning abortions, we could trust women to decide. Every size and shape of body could be normalized, and every type of mental illness could finally be destigmatized. No more squeezing and contorting into boxes we don't fit. No more saying that we're fine when we're not, but scared to admit. No more telling little boys it's better not to cry. There's a whole lot in our culture we could cancel if we try. We've been marching in these streets, singing we shall overcome, praying all the world to give up all their bombs and all their guns. I just want peace of every kind, but the whole world tonight to believe that Martin was right. We can drive out the darkness with the light. Drive out the darkness. Drive out the darkness. We can drive out the darkness with the light. Drive out the darkness. Drive out the darkness. We can drive out the darkness with the light. Drive out the darkness. Drive out the darkness. We can drive out the darkness with the light.
Carroll, boys here,
All right. I say good morning. Good morning. All right, let's try that one more time because I like people to talk back to me. I said good morning. Good morning. All right, I am Jennifer Carroll Foy, and I'm so excited to be here. And I want to thank Network Nova and everyone who had a hand in establishing this amazing event. So I'm here to talk to you all about a little bit of environmental racism. And so environmental racism is something that's prevalent, that's prominent, and that's happening right now. But I don't just want to say the word environmental racism, I want you to see it. So what I want you to see and what I want you to imagine is a young 6-year-old girl named Stacy. And Stacy lives in an apartment where there's lead in the paint on her walls and around her windowsills. She drinks water from the tap that has a little bit of lead in it. She plays on a playground that has arsenic in the soil. She lives in an apartment complex that's made of concrete, where there's very few trees, absolutely no green space, but there's a lot of traffic. And Stacy goes to a school where in her classroom, the ceiling tiles have molded because there are water leaks that have not been taken care of. That, ladies and gentlemen, is environmental racism. And so when we think of environmental racism, we like to think of Flint, Michigan, where people have been drinking lead from the pipes in their water for years. But when I tell you to think about environmental racism, I need you to think about Prince William County, where on Possum Point Road, there are people who have multiple cancers because right up the road from them was a coal-burning plant that had coal ponds leaking lead, arsenic, and mercury into people's well-drinking water. When I tell you to think about environmental racism, I need you to think about the fact that in Prince William and Fairfax counties, if you live on the west side of the county, that you are more likely to live 10 years longer than if you live on the east. Ladies and gentlemen, that is environmental racism. If you are black, brown, and poor, you are more likely to live where pipelines are being built, where garbage is being dumped, where fossil fuels are being burned. These are the facts. And I live on the east. My children go to school on the east. We worship on the east. And I am the east, and I'm not going to move because I'm going to fight to ensure that everyone has equal opportunity to live out a full, healthy, and safe life. So I say all of this because I want to bring it back to why I'm really here today. I'm really here today because I want to encourage all of you to ensure that you look to your left and you look to your right and know that there's a fantastic person that's sitting there and we need them running for office. Now, I know people are like, no, Jen, I mean, you don't know who I am, right? I don't have the time, I don't have the resources. But again, I'm saying neither did I. Neither did many of the people who are social workers and journalists and who are unemployed who have now taken up the charge to run for office. Because if we're really going to address environmental racism and climate change, then we need serious people running for office. And what we really need is badass women running for office. So when I say badass, I need you to say badass. Say badass! All right. We need badass women running for office who will treat climate change as science facts and not science fiction. We need badass women running for office who ensure that we end our long-term addiction to fossil fuels. And who will do everything in their power because they look in the eyes of their child and say that the best legacy that I can leave for you is clean air to breathe and clean water to drink. We need badass women running for office because how I always say, if you want something done right, if you want something done well, then have a what? Do it. That is exactly right. That is exactly right. You got it. And so that's what this is about. It's about the fact that now is our time. We can't wait for politicians and judges to save us. We have to save ourselves. This starts and ends with us. Because when the ice caps are melting, when we see historic temperature rising, when we understand the fact that climate change is happening whether we want to believe it or not, then that is why we're here. Because women, we get it. Women get it done. Women make it happen. Women need to be in all levers of power across this country, and we cannot stop until we make it happen. Clean air is not a partisan issue. It's not. And as long as people continue to treat it as such, we will continue to be in this situation. And so we can talk to the politicians. We can show them the polls. But at the end of the day, we will not end environmental racism. We will not address climate change until we show every single Republican the door. So are you with me? Are you with me? All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's get it done. Thank you all very much.
Well, I chose this song for the next person, but also for that woman that just walked out and said,
Can't take this tornado in my brain. Giving up, I'm crying. Can't shake this wild hurricane. I'm through, trying. 'Cause I've been beaten, yeah. I've been bruised. I've been ripped to shreds, hell. I've been used. I need healing. I'm tired of taking these hits. Gotta do something, sing it goes like this. I may be broken, but my feet are still on the ground. If I give up, this queen will never be crowned. Even under ashes, I got glory. I'm not the hero in my own story. You're an avalanche, and I'm 10 feet below. Give me out, I'm begging. Under spotlight, you give one hell of a show. Oh, but out of this cage I'm breaking. 'Cause I've been beaten, yeah. I've been bruised. I've been ripped to shreds, I've been used. I need healing. I'm tired of taking these hits. Got a new song to sing, it goes like this. I may be broken, but my feet are still on the ground. And if I give up, this queen will never be crowned. Even under ashes, I am not glory. And I'm the hero in my own story. But my heart is shaking. I can feel the light, but my world is breaking. I'm ready to fight with this paper and pen. I'll write my own happy ending. I'm the hero here. I'm the hero here. Sing that. I'm the hero here. 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 I'm a hero in my own story. I'm not broken, but my feet are still on the ground. And if I give up, this queen will never be crowned. Even under ashes, I got glory. And I'm a hero in my own story.
election, and that, okay, Democrats are going to lose. And we know that's not true, right? We know that this is really that kind of talk that just is supposed to kind of make us kind of go to sleep, going to gaslight us a little bit. But really, our next guest, our next speaker, is why we are going to be successful. Because they are organizing, and it's our job as activists, as older activists, to make sure we have space for them, we support them, we give them the stage, the platform, because we will win. Students, young people show up to vote, but they have to, and they're going to tell you, we have to make sure that we listen to them and we give them the lead. So welcome to Elizabeth Brubaker, badass TRA activist.
So hi everyone, my name is Elizabeth Brubaker and I am the current Internal Affairs Director of Generation Ratify Virginia, which is the youth-led intersectional feminist revolution advocating for the ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment and full gender equality. As I am sure the majority of folks here today realize, the voting youth bloc in Virginia has immense power and potential, but yet the majority of campaigns and organizations fail to tap into that. From the 2020 election to the 2021 off-year election, there was a decrease in youth participation as ballots by 46.1%. This lack of participation is often mistaken for youth apathy for the world around them, which is simply not true. Instead, we are failing to identify the true root causes of this lack of participation. The general distrust our generation has for the democratic process and the barriers we face when voting. But by showing up today, you are demonstrating the desire to understand and uplift the voices of those inheriting the world. Today, I am here to take that desire and help to turn it into concrete action steps, to be all in for you, not just for the 2022 midterm, but in all forms of civic engagement. Now, as I do with all my Generation Ratify members and all of the other organizations I work with, which I'm sure they love, when I like to give evaluations, I like to do what I call grows and glows. Grows are things that I notice that might need improvement, that we need to address. But glows are things that are great that we need to continue to do. So I am here to give my grows and glows for youth engagement in voting, especially in Virginia. My first grow is that remembering students leave for college in mid-August, with many leaving the state who will not return until after Election Day. If you want these young voters to connect with your campaign or your organization before the election, outreach needs to begin now. Attempting to knock on the door in September or remind them to request their absentee ballot when they are sitting in a library 500 miles away is ineffective in closing the distance they feel from their own issues. Instead, we must make it a priority to canvass, contact, hype youth up for the elections now before they leave, to make them already feel more connected to the issues and feel motivated to stay engaged in your campaigns even while they are far from home. Now, let's do a glow. Many organizations and candidates have started to collaborate with youth organizations like the Virginia Young Democrats Teen Caucus, the Pride Liberation Project, and Generation Ratify Virginia, not to do a shameless plug, for 1 or 2 campaign events. This is amazing. Teens being involved help us feel closer to the campaign and have a better sense of control over the issues and how we are interacting with them. This, however, can go further. Setting up weekly phone banks or events with particular youth organizations, collaborating with them to help develop their own scripts with your campaign that they know will engage youth voters, and working to create a youth-safe space within your election will help center the youth and acknowledge the future that they represent in your campaign and will certainly increase voter turnout. My last row. Youth will not vote for someone simply because they are a candidate. If one's platform or messaging centers around being better than the other option and fails to present new or innovative policy solutions, youth motivation is seriously low. At this point, we demand new solutions. For example, we have heard for years candidates say that they are for gun control, yet we find ourselves still hiding under desks weeks before we graduate high school to prepare for active shooter drills. When we attend a debate or hear an ad on TV, we want to hear concrete policy solutions that we can find hope in. We want to hear, I will for gun control because ABC, and I will institute policy XYZ using DEF resources. We want those specifics. It is detrimental to hide or sugarcoat these complex issues from you. We understand them. We live through them. We are the results of them. And we as youth leaders and future voters will continue to mobilize and help guide our peers to the ballot box. But we need your help. I urge everyone here today to establish their own personal lows and grows for how they engage with youth. Have you been super direct with the youth voters in your life? Maybe you can invite a teen to your upcoming panel. Oh, it's June. Have you checked your next door teen neighbor and make sure that they've already requested their absentee ballot? If we work together, we can be all in for youth in Virginia in the 2022 election and years to come, and I thank you for your time. I'm looking forward to it.
Ran for office. He stood up, wanted to make a difference in a district that was really very difficult for a Democrat to run, but it's very important that we run everywhere. And a lot of people are here from different parts of Virginia, especially rural Virginia. Rural ground game is here. There's activists and candidates. Tasha Devon is here, all the way out to CD9. And we got to learn to work together and work across lines outside of our silos. One thing that this grassroots movement has taught the Democratic Party is we can't stay in our silo. We can't stay in our district. And sometimes at first they got mad at us, like, why are you making people go down to that Wise County? What the heck? We're like, because we got it. We got to spread blue seeds. We got to make friends. And we're more powerful. Last night, there were so many people from different parts of Virginia that are now working together. And that's power. So our next guest, when they talk about what we need to do and how we need to stand up and show up, especially with the white supremacism, about truth and justice. And he also has his own, now he's on Urban View, Channel 126. He's a TikToker. We love him. Awesome. Hit it. Let's go.
It means the world to me. Anytime I have the opportunity to have an audience for people to dedicate their time, which in my view is the most precious thing any of us have, I'm always deeply grateful. In the 2 minutes I have, I want to tell one quick story. 2 facts of history that very few people know about, and then they can call to action. The story was a few weeks back, I was having dinner with my family, and my 8-year-old, Hashim, is a thinker. He loves reading. He's at dinner, not eating his food, reading a book, which the rule is no cell phone for me, no book for him, but didn't seem to listen. And suddenly he looks up and he goes, Abu, don't people need food to live? And I said, yeah, well, that's sort of what it means to be a person. You need food to live. To be a living being, you need food to live. He goes, right, but if people don't get food, then they starve and they'll die, right? And I said, yeah, well, this is common sense. What's your point? He goes, well, if people need food to live, then why isn't food free to anyone who needs it? And what I loved about it is that he didn't worry about what was possible or practical or supply chain issues or inflation or free market capitalism. He thought what was necessary to protect the humanity of every single person out there. Whoever they are, whatever their background, regardless of race, religion, creed, or any other differentiating factor, his focus is what is necessary to ensure the basic humanity of people. And so as I thought about this, and this was around the same time that Justice Thomas made a complaint that the Supreme Court will not be bullied into making decisions. This was right around the time of the leak of the decision that came out yesterday. And, as a lawyer, when I went into law school, went behind the ears and bright-eyed, I thought of the Supreme Court as like this paragon of virtue. And in law school disabused me of that notion very quickly. And so one of the first historical facts I want to share is just a quick history lesson And for those of you who are lawyers, I'm sorry, I don't mean to bring you back to Civil Procedure 101. But I want to make a point very clearly that where we are right now as a country is not by accident. It's not by random chaos. It's by deliberate decisions those in power have made. And oftentimes we feel helpless or apathetic and just throw our hands up and say, well, we did our best, and this is where we are, so obviously my vote doesn't count. And that is the most destructive thought we can have because we've capitulated, we've succumbed to this mythology that we have no control. Look, 74 million people voted for the other guy last election, 81 million people voted for Joe Biden, 101 million people didn't vote at all. Think about that. So, very quickly, because my time is short, some of these cases you've heard of. Dred Scott, 1857, the Supreme Court ruled 7-2 that black people are subhuman. And many attribute this case as a precursor to the Civil War because all other options had been exhausted. We've all heard of the 1965 Civil Rights Act, but how many people know that there was a Civil Rights Act of 1875 that guaranteed a lot of these same rights, but in 1883, the Supreme Court struck them down 8-1, saying the 13th and 14th Amendments don't provide equal protection to black people, and hence the exponential rise of Jim Crow and segregation. 1896, Plessy v. Ferguson, 7-1, reaffirmed that, and further made black codes a reality in school, in the employment sector, and throughout the U.S. military. 1918, and this is a key case, Hammer v. Zagatard, the Supreme Court ruled that Congress could not ban child labor. They said it was a states' rights issue. Sound familiar? Bigotry is very unoriginal. It has misinformation and fear and fuses them together. That's their only move. 1923, Finn versus United States, a Sikh man sought citizenship. And the Supreme Court said, well, while you are white for the definition of our textbooks, come on, you're clearly not white, so we're going to ban you. And in fact, we're going to ban all Asians. And in 1924, all Asians were banned from immigration to the United States. 1927, this one impacts Virginia. 8-1 in Buck versus Bell. The Supreme Court upheld a Virginia eugenics law targeting black people, and that law then spread rapidly. And when the carnage was said and done, more than 60,000 black women, children, and then children as young as 10 were forcibly sterilized. And the horrifying reality of Buck versus Bell is that as of 2022, it is still valid precedent. It was never actually overturned. Now, I can go on and on. There's a dozen more cases, but just to let you know how this is not some ancient history, ancient reality. In 2021, Nestle USA versus Doe 1, the Supreme Court ruled 8-1 that children kidnapped and enslaved and forced to go to the Ivory Coast to produce for American corporations could not sue those American corporations. This is 2021. And yesterday we saw the reality of a Supreme Court that has no consistency or sense of morality to it. And so now for the second fact I want to share with you. And that is the reality that representation truly matters. I went back and I looked at the number of women in the United States Senate throughout the history of the Senate. The 240-some year history of the U.S. Senate. Whatever the number is. 58. So if you took all the women in American history that served the Senate and put them on our current session of the U.S. Senate, you still wouldn't have enough women to overcome the white supremacist Jim Crow filibuster. When we look at the history of the United States presidency, 100% men. Of the U.S. Senate, 98% men. U.S. Supreme Court, 94% men. U.S. House of Representatives, 91% men. I bring all this not to bring you down, but to share back to the original point that I started this discourse with. We need to stop worrying about what's possible and start focusing on what's necessary. Stop worrying about what's possible and start focusing on what's necessary. And what's necessary is for us to get up, continue to work, and continue to put forward that effort for that more perfect union. One in which, yes, no child goes hungry, no person goes hungry, because God knows we don't suffer from a lack of food. We suffer from an excess of greed of billionaire corporations who don't actually care about us as individuals. For my part, I was proud to launch a PAC last year called Common Purpose that supports progressive candidates who support universal health care, reject corporate money, support reproductive health access for all people. And I'm proud that of the first 10 endorsees, 9 of them are women, 8 of them are women of color. You're going to hear a lot of phenomenal speakers today and throughout this weekend, but remember, coming to these events has to be, and I'll close with this, coming to these events is not activism. If all you do is come here, go home and pat yourself on the back and post a couple of selfies on Facebook, you shouldn't have come. Every single person here is here because you believe that the sum of our parts is greater than the whole. After you come here, go back, look at the candidates you can support, look at the 101 million people in your network who you can pull out and say, hey, let's stop worrying about what's possible, let's worry about what's necessary, and what's necessary is working together to create a more perfect union that provides equal justice for all of us. Thank you guys.
My boots for a minute. Tell me how easy it is to stay silent. Walking on your babies and you see those flashing lights. Mama always said it's not safe for a black man to walk at night. So let him walk in my heels for a minute. Tell me how easy it is to forget. Cause I say it's your fault for dressing like you do. But ignore that good man who left you black and blue. Oh, till the end of the hurt, until the last lesson learned. I'll wreck my voice, I'll be heard through noise. I'll stand my ground until I see the end. And you would too if you'd been where I've been. Go ahead and walk in my shoes for a minute. Tell me how easy it is to grin and bear it when the ones you love most close the door on you and shun. Cause a 4,000-year-old book is more important than their son. Go ahead and walk with my bare feet for a minute. Tell me how easy it is to accept it when everything you've ever known is turned to soot and ash. A war you had no hand in, took everything you had. How does it feel when the world turns its back? Oh, to the end of the hurt, until the last lesson learned. I'll wreck my voice, I'll be heard through the noise. I'll stand my ground until I see the end. And you would too if you'd been where I've been. Oh, stand up, won't you? Stand up, won't you?
This is around the time when I ask my audiences to please sing with me. Now I know that we're the ones with the microphones in front of our faces. We're the ones on the stage with the lights and the big shining thing in front behind us. And I know that we're the ones that have been asked to sing at protests with the microphones in front of our faces. But let me tell you, this is how change works. This is how real social justice works. You stand around a water cooler talking about how Black Lives Matter. Talk about how women's lives matter. Talk about how women's rights matter. Talk about how trans lives. Talk about how survivors' stories matter. And you tell that to somebody who looks like you do. You might not know what their political affiliation is.
Somebody who looks like you do. Somebody who loves like you do. Somebody who makes money like you do. Somebody who stands around the same water cooler as you do. Somebody, let's give her a name. Let's call her Becky. Becky in the cubicle next to you. Becky in marketing. Becky in HR. And you tell Becky, this is what I believe, I believe. Even though your hands are shaking, even though your voice is quaking, even though you don't know what's going to happen on Monday when you come back to work, let me tell you what happens on Sunday. Becky goes to church on Sunday. Becky hears a joke, an inappropriate, racist joke. A joke that isn't funny at all. Becky says, this is what I believe, I believe. Becky used your words. Becky used your shaking voice. Becky knew the words to say because you were brave. Standing around a water cooler, talking about how Black Lives Matter, talking about how lives that do not look like you, love like you, lives that don't make money like you, lives who don't have houses, who don't have education like you, somebody who doesn't love or is married like you, somebody who doesn't practice the same religion as you, but their lives matter and you know it. So you use your voice, you use your body, you put it on the streets, you do it in the sign, you sign those petitions, you decide to show up and put your body on the line for the lives of those who do not look like you, love like you, live like you, because their lives matter. Can I get an amen? Their lives matter, so I want you right now. I want you, even though you don't have a microphone in front of you, I want you to practice standing up. Stand up, won't you 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 stand up, keep going, till the end of the race, till the last lesson learned, I'll wreck my voice, I'll be heard through the noise, and I will stand my ground until I see the end. If you would too, if you had been where I could stand up, won't you stand up? I want you to sing it until the end of the song, until your voice is hoarse. Phyllis, Randall's here to bring it home. Good afternoon, Network Nova. Good afternoon, Network Nova. Good afternoon, Network Nova. Something about myself you might not know. I hate being cold. I hate being cold. I'm from Denver, Colorado, and I was cold a lot, but I hate being cold. Being cold is why I left Denver after I came out of high school, went to school in Memphis, because I hate being cold. So you can imagine how miserable 7-year-old Phyllis was when my grandmother, on the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November in Denver, Colorado, put me on my coat and my boots and my hat and took my hand and walked me 7 blocks to Park Hill Library
The entire time I'm whining and crying and complaining, and at one point stopped moving because I was cold. She gave me a little swat, told us, let's go. We got to Park Hill Library. Grandma went in, stood in line, and she did something called voting. She then wrapped me back up, walked me back to her house, whining and crying and complaining the entire way. She got me back home, calmed me down, set me at the table with some rice with half and half in sugar. Ever had rice with half and half in sugar? You should do that. It's amazing stuff. And she said, Phyllis, I want to tell you what we did today. And I'm complaining about being cold and complaining about my legs hurt and I didn't want to do it. And my grandmother, who was always very, very gentle and kind, at this moment, she was more stern than she had ever been. She said, let me tell you what we did today. She said, I had to go vote, and there was nobody here to watch you, so you had to go with me. And then she explained to me what voting was and why she did it. She went all the way back, literally, to Harriet Tubman. She walked me up through Rosa Parks and Fannie Lou Hamer and Shirley Chisholm. She walked me through the Civil Rights Movement. She told me about a man named Dr. Keene and someone named Ralph Abernathy, Julian Bond, and John Lewis. She told me about all these people. And when you're 7 years old, those people don't really mean anything to you. But I remember my grandmother was so stern in this conversation. It sounded like this was really important. And then she told me that my grandpa Bob went to something called the March on Washington, and how 5 men from New Hope Baptist Church went and they gathered money from them from the church. They passed the plate. And why they went to New Hope Baptist Church to gather the plate and get the money that goes to the March on Washington. She explained to me what it was to be a young black girl in America and why voting was so important. She talked to me for probably an hour about the Little Rock Nine and all kinds of things. Grandpa came in and saw that she was talking to me, got his pipe set down, listened to the conversation. My rice is now gone and Grandma's still talking. And she said to me, so Phyllis, I want you to promise me that you're going to always vote. She did not say to me, Phyllis, I want you to promise me you will always vote for the president. She did not say to me, I want you to promise me you'll always vote for a governor. She said, I want you to promise me you will always vote in every election. School board elections, city council elections, supervisor elections, state house elections, commissioner elections. You will always vote. From that moment on, my family was just an active family. I remember hearing all the stories my family went to. My grandpa talked to me about his twin brothers who were cousins, W.T. and J.T., and their interaction with the Klan. My Aunt June, who in the 70s was the empowerment of the Black Rights Movement for me. All that was Black power was embossed in my Aunt June's afro. All of it. I grew up fully understanding why voting was important. It is in my DNA. It is in my DNA. I was never confused about it. So fast forward, and we get to the election between Al Gore and George Bush when Al Gore wins the popular vote, right? Yet he's not president. We get to the Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, when Hillary Clinton wins the popular vote and she's not president. And I hear all these people complaining about the Electoral College, and I believe the Electoral College should be changed, that is true. But then I did something. I went and looked at the numbers and I realized the largest block of people did not vote for Donald Trump. And the largest block of people did not vote for Hillary Clinton. The largest block of people did not vote. Did not vote. I, as a woman and a black woman, don't understand not voting. I understand who fought for me. I understand that people were beat. I understand people had dogs set up on them. I understand women were thrown in jail right in Aquaporn. I understand they were force-fed. I understand that black people hung on trees like strange fruit. I understood what the Edmund Pettus Bridge experience was. I do not understand not voting. Voting is in my DNA. And I will tell you something else. I don't understand the term, well, I'm not really that political. I'm not really into politics. What the hell? Because politics is into you. So whether or not you're into politics makes no difference whatsoever. So why are we here today? Yes, we come, we get energized, we get toast and stuff, we get fed. That's cool, we should do that. But we're in here today because what we know is, no matter what's happened right now, no matter the fact that 13 states have rolled back voting restrictions, we also know that 25 states have put more voting rights in place. No matter the big lie, no matter all of that, we know that through it all, voting changes things. Voting is the one and only real weapon we have to change things. So what are you going to do when you leave here? You're going to go find some people who don't vote. And I'm not talking about your sister-in-law who you've been arguing with for 25 years and she likes Donald Trump and you can't convince her any other way. She is lost. She's lost. Leave her alone. I'm talking about the woman at the grocery store who you see every day bagging their groceries or helping you out. I'm talking about asking her, how you doing? Are you okay? Let's talk about a family. And at some point, you give her a voter registration card and you vote. Take her to vote. I'm talking about the person who's standing there when you're going to get flowers, standing next to you. How you doing? What's your name? And you give them, the worst they can tell you is no. The worst they can tell you is no. We have got to show up in numbers this year, next year, and every year. And numbers so big they cannot deny it no matter how much they want to choose. We're going to show up like a crew. Now, many of you may have heard this, some of you may not, but when my son was graduating high school, he had all his friends over at his house, and I said, Aaron, what do you call your friends? Are those your homies? And he goes, no one says homies. I said, are those your boys? And I said, no one says boys. I said, are they just your friends? And he said, Mom, that's my crew. You all are the crew. And you got to show up like the crew. You got to knock doors like the crew. You got to make phone calls. You got to encourage the people to vote. You got to go to rallies. You got to give money. You got to turn them out on election day. You got to work the polls before and after election day. You got to work. You got to work. You got to be the crew. But most important, you got to talk to people about voting. Talk to your brothers. Talk to your sisters. Talk to the lady at the grocery store. Talk to your child's teacher. Talk to the pharmacist. Talk to Lonnie, Donnie, and every damn body, because we got to win some elections. You got to be the crew. And if you don't do it, nobody is going to do it. You've got to be Grandma Early Mae, sitting down with 7-year-old Phyllis, with a bowl of rice with half and half and sugar, telling everybody why we are doing this. That's what you have to be. That's why you're here today. That's why you're being fed. That's why you're hearing speeches. That's why you're getting excited. That's why you're motivated. That is why, because you got to go out and be the crew. We do this together. A crew is together. We come up together.
say, wait, be patient. If they knew how long it would be before all people truly hear freedom ring, I wonder which end of that moral arc would they choose. I wonder if more would have walked in his shoes. This is what revolution looks like. You gotta get in and then stay in this fight. You got to find a way to get in the way. Speak up, speak out every day. Freedom fighters or letter writers, do what you can, just shine your light brighter. Somebody called him the saint among men, a founding father, an icon, a legend. Ordinary people with such extraordinary vision in a country so young are pressed on every single side but not crushed, saying in God, love and justice we trust. This is what revolution looks like. You gotta get in and then stay in this fight. You got to find a way to get in the way. Speak up, speak out every day. Freedom riders, letter writers, do what you can, just shine your light brighter. Make the trouble every chance you get. Eyes on the prize, you're not finished yet. Don't tolerate injustice, my friends. Call them out, but then call them in. If you see something that's not right, not fair, stand up and say we can do better. He said I may not be with you when we reach the other side, so let the power of love everlasting be your guide. 'Cause this is what revolution looks like. You gotta get